Alright, you guys, another Monday, another video, and in this one I wanted to talk a little bit about color and like monochromatic color schemes and kind of what that is, and I don't know, just kind of explore some old art class memories because kind of delving into more of this terminology lately has really had me thinking about my old art classes. So if, I don't know, sitting down and listening to me chat while I finish this spread is something that you would like to do. I'm Rory Fluent. Feel free to call me Rory if you're new around here. Hi, hello, how are you? Let me know in the comments down below. I like to create dope art content and hopefully curate a chill atmosphere. And if you're not new around here, what is up, my dudes? Let's get into this video. Okay, so the first thing that I kind of wanted to get into a little bit was like what I'm going to call like these art class memories. You know, I feel like everyone has them because for whatever reason in like elementary school and I think even middle school, we're all forced to, well not for, you know, but it's like a mandatory class to take like Art 1 and Art 2 or something like that. So I feel like we all have these memories. I'm sure we all remember when we were kind of sat down in art class, you know, and there's what, between 20 and 30 of us, you know, all like really wound small children, and we're trying to be taught about the color wheel. And while I've been kind of like exploring these topics with you guys and talking a lot about color, I really started to feel like, I don't know, I started to remember a lot more about these art classes that I haven't in a really long time. And I just thought it was really funny to reminisce on learning about the color wheel. And I also was kind of shocked at how little I actually retained of that information. I feel like, I don't know, sometimes this color terminology, it like doesn't really stick with me. Especially not like for, I don't know, having not really been using that terminology. I'm gonna try and be like more specific in my wording in my videos, and I don't know, I want to come across like I'm as educated as I am, I guess. And I'm just gonna start sort of like diving into these art concepts, and I'm hoping that that will be kind of fun for you guys. It will be like a learning kind of exercise for the both of us, and I just think that that could be really cool to do together. But going back to that sort of like memory that I was bringing up, I'm pretty sure we all kind of had the same lesson because it was one of those like state mandated like things. So like we all got this like printed out like color wheel, and then we had to fill in the colors with like those cheap Crayola paints, and they came in like, you guys remember the really long, like it was very like, I don't know even how to describe it. Like all of the pans were just horizontally right next to each other, and it was just like long and thin, and the colors were really chalky and weird, but we didn't know what that meant in elementary. And we had to like mix the colors and learn about complementary colors and then analogous colors and tertiary colors. And I think we kind of touched a little bit on warm and cool colors. Please correct me if you had a different experience in art class, but I remember sort of diving into the idea of what a cool color is and a warm color, and then like it was really cool, and it is still like a really fun exercise to mix your own colors. So I remember kind of fondly mixing those colors to get the correct like red orange and red violet and blue violet, and so on and so forth. And nowadays, it's sort of interesting to me because I do really like having my colors sort of ready to go. I find that when my palette has colors that I really like in them and not just mixing colors, I'm more excited to use my palette. But that being said, I have been actually mixing more colors lately, even if it's just sort of tinting the color or adding white and just tweaking the color a little bit. You know, I wouldn't say that I'm making anything new or super different from the colors that I'm using, but it's been nice to sort of experiment with that a little bit more. I'd like to push myself even more and really start mixing my own colors. Especially because I've found across not only different mediums, but different brands within the same medium, they will all have a color labeled the same thing, and then when you squeeze it out onto your mixing palette, it is like not the same color at all. And I've just kind of, specifically I'm thinking of like olive green. I have an olive green in my acrylic gouache from Holbein. I have an olive green from Daniel Smith gouache, and then I have an olive green in Schminke watercolor, and they're like all the same like hue, I guess. Well, hue is technically like color. So what are they? They're all in the same color family. They're all a warm toned green, but they're all varying versions of a warm toned green. And I find that to be kind of interesting because I like certain olive greens from certain brands and mediums more than I do others. And that's really been inspiring me to try to mix my colors a little bit more, because I sort of take the olive green from Daniel Smith, which in my opinion is very dark in comparison to the kind of olive green that I like to work with, and it's not quite as like yellow as I want it to be, so I sort of mix that color with varying yellows, normally warm toned yellows, because olive green is a warm toned color, and I want to make sure that the color stays warm toned and doesn't become neutral or cool by mixing a cool toned yellow, because then you start to get a cool toned green. And you know, I've done that before actually on accident, without thinking. I used titanium buff to try and mix with my olive green, and then I was like, this is a very grayish green, what is happening? And it's because I was using a warm toned green with a cool toned yellow, and then that cool toned yellow, I used quite a bit of it, so it sort of took over the actual like warmth and coolness of the color and made it incredibly cool and sort of overpowered the warmth of the green. Within the same topic, I kind of wanted to touch on how in school we're very quickly divided into sort of these left brain, right brain categories, where those of us who are more, I guess, creatively inclined tend to be pushed towards English and language classes and art classes, and I don't know what else is sort of associated with that, like music classes, theater, that kind of thing. And those who are more right brain, wait, is it right brain? I think right brain is the mathy one or whatever. Those who are considered more technicals, so like good with computers and really good at math, taking like calculus, just have a very analytical mindset on things. They're probably really good at analysis and like critical thinking skills. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, but I always thought it was really weird because I was very much so straight down the middle. I could take every art class and pass with flying colors, and then I would go and take my calculus. And should I have been in calculus? No, but I was in a calculus class, believe it or not, and I did make it through fairly okay. I took pre-calc and I passed pretty well, and before that I was in algebra and geometry and algebra 1 and 2, and you know, I have no business being in a math class. I didn't enjoy it, but I was pretty good at math. And I was also taking 3 English classes. I was taking, you know, like a CCP language class, and then an AP arts class, and like all kinds of things like that. And I remember sitting in my calculus class with my teacher, Mrs. Littman, and I remember her saying something along the lines of, you know, like, oh, you know, we're all right brain here, we don't have to be good at that English stuff. Meanwhile, I'm literally in 3 English classes, this calculus class, and I'm taking like college courses. And I just remember thinking to myself, that is so stupid. Like, that's so ridiculous. And I just think it's really strange that we have to be sort of segmented and segregated in that way very quickly. Like, you can't really be both, or at the very least, it's not exactly normal to be both. When in reality, I think that it is perfectly normal to be both creative and analytical. I have, I would say, above average analysis and critical thinking skills, but when it comes to like being able to quickly and efficiently work, I'm very bad at that. I take my time. I am not a fast learner. I have to really sort of dedicate myself to that kind of things. Where I have a twin brother, and it's kind of funny because we're kind of two sides of the same coin, where like I was more left brain leaning and he was more right brain leaning. So he was a lot more technically skilled when it comes to math, science, computers. And I was a lot more creatively experimental. I was a lot better at my English classes and literature classes and things like that. But my brother absolutely adored taking different languages. He was in Chinese for like, I don't know, quite a few years and loved every second of it. But then he was also taking 2 calculus classes at the same time, and he was in choir and sang, you know, and he actually enjoyed art and was in an art class. And, you know, to sort of push all of that to the side and just look at someone as like this flatly, are you creatively minded or are you, I don't even know what to call it, because you can be analytical and technically minded and still be creative, but do you have those outwardly creative, recognizable traits, or are you more of a analytical individual? And to have to sort of only be one or the other, I think, is very strange, and something that I saw a lot within my high school. And I'm curious if any of you also kind of were forced to see the different ways in which kids were sort of like suppressed and pushed into one version of themselves or the other. The next topic that I wanted to touch on was monochromatic colors. Now, this isn't directly pertinent and corollary to what I'm doing on this spread, but I was learning so much about all of this color terminology, and you'll see here that I sort of have like a thematic color scheme where everything is sort of, I don't know, like tied together in a way. Harmony, that's the word I'm looking for. Again, I'm going to try really hard to start using these specific terms. I literally have like a little tab pulled up on my computer for them so that I remember them, because I want to, like I said, I want to come across like I know what I'm talking about. Color harmony is the idea that we are using I am using here, a combination of colors that allow the eye to very smoothly travel between the different colors without there being like a specific focal point where one color is jarringly different in tone or hue than another. And monochromatic colors come in when you are just quite literally using the shades and tints of the exact same color. So again, not directly pertinent here, but you can see that the colors that I'm using are all warm toned colors. They have the same sort of like I guess you could say like mass tone in a way when it comes to the warmth and coolness. They are all very warm and have a mass, like warm tone to them. And because of that, they sort of work in harmony with each other. So the other thing that's going on is that it's a tertiary color scheme. So I have oranges, reds, and violets, which are all oh my goodness, it's not tertiary, it's analogous. Analogous color schemes. So all of the colors are sort of like in a line directly next to each other in the color wheel, which also helps to add to that sort of like harmonious feeling where nothing is particularly jarring or standing out. Like if I had chosen to add like a cool bright blue to this, that color would become the focal point of the spread, because it would be so different in the coolness of the color, which really contrast with the warmth of the sketchbook spread, and then the blue would contrast with the yellowy oranges, because again, warmer colors are more yellow, and because blue and yellow, or is it blue and orange, are complementary on the color wheel, that means that they directly sort of contrast with each other. And so there are all these fun new terms that I'm sort of breathing new life to in my head, and I just want to make sure that I'm continuing to use them and use them correctly. And so anyways, this spread, I immediately wanted to call it monochromatic, but it's nowhere near monochromatic, and I knew that when I was thinking the word in my head, but I couldn't find the right word for it. And then eventually I stumbled on color harmony, and I was like, and analogous color schemes, and I was like, okay, we've got this, we're learning our terms now. To sort of use these strange terms together to sort of simply put what I'm doing. From my understanding of it, I am using, like an analogous color scheme that has like a mass tone generally of orange, but I'm manipulating that orange in tone and intensity to create various colors. And then I also happen to have a red pulling violet color, a very deep violet color, which is the most sort of contrasting color that I have in this spread. And the last thing that I wanted to sort of point out, because I thought it was so weird, is the fact that I learned about the word saturation in terms of color, right? And so in my head, saturation was always sort of like the vividness of the hue. But that's not the case. That word, I guess, is the intensity of the color, which is basically like the brightness and the strength of the color versus the weakness and dullness of the pigment. And so, like, the duller a paint color is, the less pigment it has. And, the more pigment that is present, the stronger and brighter the color is. And what I also thought was just like, I don't know, super weird was the fact that the saturation is actually how a hue looks in certain lighting. Like, what? No, I've been using that term wrong, like, this whole time on my channel. The example given is the idea that, like, in a room with a yellow wall, it will look different throughout the day, right? Especially if there are lots of windows in that room. So in the morning, it might look like a pale yellow, it might turn to a more gold as evening hits, and then during the night, it might even look gray or a very dark, deep yellow. And I just had no idea that the way that light interacts with my paints is the saturation of the paints, and then the intensity of the color is actually the sort of like brightness and dullness of the pigments that I'm using. And I never would have thought that that wasn't the saturation, and it's gonna take so long to like undo that in my head and like figure out how to use the proper term when I need to. So I hope that some of this terminology exploration has been helpful to you guys. I had a lot of fun doing it, and again, like, I'm learning so much. Like, there's this word that I've never heard called the chroma or the chromacity, and that's like the purity of the color, and it's kind of similar to like the value of how light or dark it is. Like a tint versus a shade is like on the chromacity scale, and something with high chroma has like the pure color in it and low chroma doesn't. And anyways, I feel like my brain is exploding with art terms, and I hope that yours is too, in a good way, I guess. And with this final look at my sketchbook page, that is going to be the end of this video. I do really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to do the YouTube-y things like comment and subscribe. If you don't know what to comment algorithm because it helps. And hopefully I will get to talk to you in the next video. Bye!